Hi, so this is take one of my very first YouTube video ever. I am pretty excited to get started on this channel because it's something I've wanted to do for a very long time, and I just never really got started. I even have ordered the supplies to do it a couple times, like ordered my light, ordered my microphone, and I just never really got started on it because I was nervous that it wasn't going to pick up, it wasn't going to do well, and I finally decided that I don't really care if I have 10 people watching my videos or 1,000 people or however many, because I mean, if 10 people showed up and sat down and were like, yes, I want to listen to you talk about books, I would be like, absolutely, come and join. Like, I will talk about books anytime to anyone. Like, if I have one person listening, I want to tell you all about what I think about my books. So really at this point, I was like, why not just get started with it and give it a try and see what I think about it at least, because books are such a huge passion of mine and I want to share that with you guys really in whatever way I can. So this is me. This is my first video. If you are watching this, thank you so much. I don't know if you found me through Twitter, through YouTube somehow. I don't really know how you came upon me, but thank you so much for finding me. That's like super cool. And thanks for listening in today. So I was thinking about, for my first video, I know the first video is like kind of important to getting the channel going, and a lot of people will do an introduction, and I was going to do that. I was going to do the mandatory introduction video, and I apologize, I'm getting my setup kind of how it's supposed to be here, and so I'm moving things around, and that's probably what my first few videos are going to be, is me trying to move things around and get it working, because I really don't know anything about this. I don't know how to create content, so we're just gonna kind of cross our fingers and see how it goes. Anyway, I was going to do an introduction video, and then I thought, why not just jump into the content I want to do right away, because I think that'll give you guys a little bit better of an idea of, do you like my videos? Do you want to subscribe? Like, are we vibing, basically? Because I only subscribe to people that I watch the videos and I'm like, this is what I want to see. This is what I want to watch. I understand this person, they understand me. So I was thinking, for my first video, let's do a little book versus movie comparison, because what reader doesn't love doing that, right? That is just like kind of the quintessential reader activity, I feel like, at least for me. If I read a book and I like the book and I find it interesting, I will absolutely go look up whatever version of the movie or the show, whatever they have. I will be like, I have to see that adapted onto a screen. So right now, what I have for you is a little book review versus movie review of The Picture of Dorian Gray, or the 2009 movie, just Dorian Gray. So before I get started, I want to let you know a couple things. First, I'm a big fan of sharing the things that I love with people rather than sharing things that I don't like. I just think it's a lot more fun, especially when it comes to recording a video, because I mean, it takes a little bit of effort to get everything set up, get the content together, sit down and record it, and then like edit it and put it up. So I don't really like spending a lot of time on things that I don't like. So, you know, duh, I mean, who does? But I just kind of want to let you guys know this channel is going to be more about the things that I enjoy. So particularly the books that I enjoy. I'm not going to make a whole video talking about a book that I hate, because I think that's just so unnecessary, and it's spreading around a message that I don't really want to be correlated with me. I would rather be looked at as somebody who's sharing the books that I love with you, rather than being like, oh, this book isn't good, this book isn't good, this book isn't good. Everything's subjective. Everything's subjective when it comes to books. That was the word I meant to say. But anyway, that being said, my reviews are subjective, not objective, even though I said that. My reviews are subjective. Everybody else's reviews are subjective. What I think about a book is subjective. What I think about a movie is subjective. So don't take anything that I say like overly seriously. If I don't like something, it's because it didn't vibe with me. If I like something, because it vibed with me. So it's never the end all be all when I like something or when I don't. But on this channel, I do mostly want to be, as far as books go, sharing stuff that I really like, because I think that's what needs more attention. If I like something, I want it to get more attention. So without further ado, let's get right into that. Now, for The Picture of Dorian Gray, the book by Oscar Wilde, I decided to read that probably a month ago because I had heard a lot about it. I knew that it was one of those books that kind of everybody ends up reading at some point, whether it is in school or by choice. Mine was by choice, thank goodness, because I think books are way more enjoyable when you read them by choice rather than when your school is making you do it. I just think that that brings a lot more opportunity for you to connect with the story rather than you're forced to do assignments that go along with it. So I was really glad that I had the opportunity to read this without being forced to read it by a teacher. So I decided to read it about a month ago, and the moment I started it, probably from the very first chapter, I was such a huge fan of it. I genuinely thought it was one of the most interesting stories I've ever read. I went in not knowing much about it. I knew very basic plot points, but I didn't really know what was happening in the end, how things would go down, kind of what the purpose of the book was. I didn't know a lot about that. So for me to read it, I thought was really interesting going in without that knowledge. So I think that it was one of those books that, without being overt about it, it does teach a lot of lessons in a way, and it does expose what people are most scared of. So it kind of digs into people's fears about growing older, about not being perfect, about not being beautiful especially. So that physical beauty that is only surface deep, it really goes into how afraid people are to let that go at some point. And I understand that, and I think that's something that is very prominent in society and in our culture, kind of no matter when you look at it from. So it's not necessarily something that was only relevant when the book was written or only relevant today. It's something that is kind of, it goes across cultures and across time and across all of society, which is something that I think is so unique, because oftentimes a story will pinpoint something that is so specific to a certain time in history or to a certain group of people. But I think fearing beauty going away or fearing growing older is something that extends throughout so much of space and time, kind of, that it makes it a great read no matter what time you read it in your life. And I was reading it as a 23-year-old woman, which I think could not possibly be more relevant for me. I thought that was really interesting to read. It kind of gave me a new perspective on how important is it to maintain your beauty and at what expense, sort of. I don't think of myself as a glamorous person. I mean, I'm sitting here in my Star Wars shirt, talking to you about books, so it's like I'm crammed up against a bed talking about books. So I'm not necessarily one of those people who's like, oh, I have to be glamorous at all times, I have to look perfect, I have to present myself this certain way. But at the same time, there is a certain way that every one of us does want to present ourselves to the world, even if we don't know what it is necessarily, or if we aren't actively trying to be glamorous and lead beautiful lives to the outside. Everybody definitely wants to portray themselves in a certain light. So I think that this book was super enlightening for me on how important is it that we look a certain way and that we act a certain way and that we show ourselves to people who don't even know us or care about us. How important is it that we look this certain way to them? So I really liked the book for those reasons. I also thought the characters were great. The plot it definitely pulled me in right away. I was a huge fan of it. I think the writing was wonderful. There were only certain parts that were overly lengthy that I was like, okay, well, you could calm down on that a little bit. You don't need that much detail. But overall, I thought it was a really, really fun book to read, but also at its core, a very deep book to read, and it gives me a lot to think about. And I do think about it pretty much every day. Something about it will pop into my mind. It's just one of those super memorable stories that gives you a lot to ponder in your own life. And I really like that because it does it without trying, sort of. Obviously the goal of it is to make you reflect on yourself a bit, but at the same time, it's not super overt. It doesn't shove any of that in your face. It just, as you're reading, it kind of hit me that a lot of it is very relevant to my own life, and I thought that was just fantastic. That was pretty much the best part of the entire book for me. So, that being said, I did, right after I finished the story, I went and I got the movie so that I could watch it. And I know there is an older version of Dorian Gray, but I wanted to watch the 2009 version with Ben Barnes because, you know, who looks more perfect to play Dorian Gray than Ben Barnes? And I know he's a good actor, so I went and I grabbed that. And let me tell you, that was an experience. See, I thought I was gonna have so much to say about this, but now that I'm sitting down to talk about the movie, it was just, it was something. I think it's a movie that Oscar Wilde probably would have liked. And so for that reason, I enjoy that part of it. I think whenever the new adaptation of something would make the author happy, I think that is really what we should be looking for. So in that sense, I'm not going to be overly harsh because I think that Oscar Wilde would see it and think, that's great, that looks good. So, you know, I don't know. I'm trying to be positive about it, and it wasn't my cup of tea, to be honest. Book readers, I would love to hear what you think of that movie adaptation, because the whole reason I watched it, other than Ben Barnes being a great actor, normally, in everything I've seen. I've watched Shadow and Bone. I love Shadow and Bone. Other than him, and as Prince Caspian, I mean, come on, it's perfect. So I just don't know what it was, but the whole vibe of the movie to me felt weird. It felt off. And there are so many people who are such huge fans of that movie that it has me very thrown, because I don't know if they didn't read the book or if they just like that the movie is such an odd interpretation of the book. Perhaps that's it. Personally, not a fan of the movie, but I could talk about the book for hours, probably, if I'm being honest. The book is so great. The movie doesn't have that deep connection with the watcher as the book does with the reader. So it doesn't give you these things to think about within your own life. It doesn't give you that. It gives you more of a very baseline of the story, I think you would say. So it has elements that should be there in the story. Basil and Dorian and Lord Henry, they are all there. They are acting as they should. Lord Henry is very, Andrew Tate vibe. Dorian acts the way he should. Basil does as well for the most part, although there is a startlingly small amount of him in the movie. I did want to see him more. Since they were switching it up, I would have given him a little more screen time, I guess. I just think that overall, when I'm looking at this book and movie comparison, the book is just so much better than the movie. It is like leaps and bounds ahead of it in terms of storytelling, in terms of meaningfulness, in terms of how well the characters are developed. Just pretty much in every aspect, I think that the book beats the movie, which I'm not the kind of person who always says that. So I'm not into saying, oh, the movie always sucks if it's based on the book. I don't think that's true at all. I think that movies have a lot of potential to go beyond where the book went. And there's so much room for not necessarily improvement, but taking things that perhaps needed a little more zest, a little more flavor in the book, and adding that into the film. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for that, and I'm sad personally that Dorian Gray didn't take those chances. Now, I did like what it did with Dorian and Basil's relationship. I think that it took that in a direction that just the book couldn't because of the time at which it was written. So I like that the movie decided to go in that direction. And I am being purposefully vague because I don't want to totally spoil it for somebody who hasn't read the book or watched the movie yet. But I think that part was great. But other than that, really, I would recommend reading the book and just kind of skip past that newer movie. Maybe try the older movie, because I definitely want to watch the older movie at some point. I can't remember when it is from exactly, but that's something I would be totally interested in seeing. But overall, my complete opinion would be the movie is about 2 out of 5 stars for me, and the book is a solid 4 or 5. I would say probably closer to 5 stars out of 5, because it was just super impressive to me. One of those that sticks with me. I love books that stick with me. They're not necessarily the most meaningful ones always. Sometimes they are actually the opposite, and they're just kind of goofy, fun books that I like. But personally, I really enjoyed the meaningfulness that came along with this book. I read it at, I think, the perfect point in my life. I think for anybody who is questioning your beauty, or how you're going to hold on to your beauty, or whether beauty is something that is as important as it seems, I think Dorian Gray is the perfect book for you to read, because it's really going to put everything into perspective for you, and maybe even make you change your mind on how important certain things are to you. So that's kind of my overall thoughts on the two of them. I know that this video has been kind of all over the place, not perfectly planned out by any means. I just wanted to sit down and make a video for you. I wanted to get myself out there and show you what this channel is going to be kind of about. I do want to keep this same structure where it's kind of podcasty vibes, if you know what I mean. So where I'm just sitting here talking to you about stuff, I would definitely in the future consider vlogging or something like that. I know some people like vlogging reading their books, so I would be open to that. I kind of like this format for right now, and I just want to put some stuff out into the world and see what you think of it, maybe get your suggestions on it. So that has been my review on Dorian Gray, the book versus the movie. I do want to thank you so much for watching today. If you made it this far, let me know in the comments whether you have read Dorian Gray or watched Dorian Gray. You can let me know what you think of it too if you want to. I would just like to see how many of you did watch through this video. I really appreciate it if you did. And as kind of a side note, I do have a couple young adult thrillers of my own. And the first one is called The Half Theft, and the second one is Better Luck This Time. They're both just my regular name, no pen name, so by Brooke Nelson. And if you're interested in thrillers at all or young adult fiction, I would definitely suggest checking them out. I love how much support I have found through the couple platforms that I do use on social media, because there are just so many of you guys who are so supportive of my writing, and I really appreciate that. And I want to thank you if you came and listened to this video and you supported me in this way as well, because that just means a lot to me. I'm not expecting for this to go and like reach a gazillion viewers, but if there are even a few of you who like listening to my book reviews, I really, really appreciate that, and I'm hoping to start posting once a week. Yeah, so just thank you so much for showing up here and listening to me today, and I will be back next week.